Welcome back to the show. Today's show is going to be based on a few viewer questions that have been sent in, asking us just who we are, why we hunt, why we do the things that we do. We'll answer those questions and a few more here today on the Blue Collar Elk Academy. Y'all pull up some chairs and sit a while. Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Academy.
Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunting, brought to you by ElkBros.com. With your host, Gilbert Ornelas, and elk hunting coach, Joe Gilliam. You want to hunt elk, and they live to hunt elk. Their goal is to share with you what they have learned grinding it out for over 35 seasons, doing what they love. So come on into camp and set a spell. Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunters.
Welcome back to Elk Camp. I'm the host of the show, Gilbert Ornelas. We have Joe Gillia, the guide from New Mexico, and Leroy Chav Chavez with us in the house tonight. Welcome back to the show, guys.
Hey, Gilbert. Good to see you, bud.
Nice to see you.
I've been talking about elk hunting all day. You know, today was the last day of the draw, so it was a busy day for a lot of our brothers.
Yeah. You had a lot of conversations with a lot of guys, and before we get started on all of that, one thing I would like to do is, Chav and I just the other day, we did the first part of a 6-part series on the Hunt Breakdown 2018, and I got a chance to thank listeners then, but every time we get on here, and I keep seeing those numbers growing, I just want to thank all those people out there that are listening to the show. I saw, man, we're in incredible amount of cities all over the United States. And for us, that's pretty cool to see something like that. And I just want to thank y'all for sending in all of the questions that you've been sending in to us. And for those of you that haven't and would like to, all you have to do is email your question to info@elkbros.com. That's ELKBROS.com. So looking forward to hearing from you. And I'm looking forward to what we're going to do tonight, Gilbert, because I know we had those questions that came in this week, and there were a lot of different questions, but in reading them, there were several questions that were all around the same theme. There were people that really wanted to know what our story was, and there were people that had asked, questions about hunting partners, and there were people that asked about reasons why we hunt. There were all those that happened. So we kind of refined that down, and I think it's a good idea for us, for all three of us, to go ahead and tell our story, man.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier today with some of my elk hunting buddies that I work with and stuff like that. Just why do we elk hunt? Definitely want to thank you and Chav for having the vision to put this out for everybody that's a blue collar elk guy, right? It's forums like this that, we live in a great country where we can do stuff like this. And our listeners, they're growing every day. I keep looking online at the podcast and from the Apple podcast and from YouTube, and it's amazing how well this thing's taken off. We have some questions that were sent in today. In one of them, they write, it says, hope to learn more about each of you guys as hunters. What's your story? So I think it's more fitting to start out with you, Joe. So why don't you lead us into your story and how this all came about for you?
I came to New Mexico in a long route. I'm a back east country boy. I was raised in the backwoods of the Carolinas, and it's funny because when I start talking to my elk hunting brothers, my brother Chav here and Gilbert, you, and even when we talk with some of the other guys that come in and hunt with us, we all kind of have a little bit of a similar story, and my story, I lost my dad at an early age, and I was about 13 years old. But I was pretty fortunate in that, my stepdad, all of us talk about, what happens as far as that father figure, but my stepdad was a hard fella. But he gave me a gift in that he gave me and introduced me to the outdoors. And so we were a family of 8, 6 kids, and my stepdad and my mom found themselves with a large group of kids. He didn't have a job at the time when my father died. And hunting in our family, in his family, that was introduced to me, was a huge part of life. It was something that brought food to the table. It was something that brought family together. When we did family vacations, it's funny because I didn't know what Disneyland was, man. I mean, our family vacation was, we'd get aunts, uncles, grandparents, and we'd fill up John boats with some supplies, with the guns and stuff, and head down the intercoastal waterway, pull up inside someplace, and man, we camped out for probably 2 weeks, and we lived off of what we fished, what we hunted, So that's my childhood was based around that, and I was pretty fortunate because when you're young, when you're 13, 14 years old, in a lot of families, you're just a kid that's not seen and not heard. And, but when you go out hunting with the uncles and with the grandparents, and you make a shot, you put something on the table, there's a level of respect that you receive,
sure.
Some pats on the back. You take a special pride in
you
that.
Belong.
Yeah, exactly, man. And there's a pride in that comes, and there's something special that's magical for a young person. And like I said, my stepdad was tough. I mean, if there was a problem, if there was something that, how to get things done, I had to figure it out. And he expected me to take care of myself and take care of those issues and to brainstorm. And I tell you, Gilbert, from that early age, I truly believe that the things he taught me, you work hard, anything can be done. And,
Sure.
I'm the only one out of my family to ever go to college. I'm just a backwoods redneck, and I came out to New Mexico because a coach had inspired me to go to college, because my father was a veteran, my real dad, and so I had the GI Bill, and I came out to New Mexico not having a clue about the state, about going to college. I came with $1,500 in this shoe and $1,500 in that shoe so that no city boy could steal my money. They were going to
exactly.
They're going to have to take me first,
and take my shoes. Exactly.
So I came out to New Mexico at 18. Yeah. I met my future wife, Loretta. We were married at 20. Young couple that were going to college. And you know how you can tell a college student is, you go to the local gas station, and then you watch people putting gas in. People always stick that thing in there and they pull it out. You know what I mean? A college student is the one that, before they take that nozzle out of the car, they take that hose and hold it.
Raise the hose.
They're going to get every drop of that, right?
Sure.
So, when we first got married, one thing I had my bow, and I had started shooting the bow since I was 6 years old, and I was the only one in a gun family that did shoot the bow, and I used that to hunt deer and elk and antelope, rabbits, squirrels, everything, to help get us through college. And then, when we got our first jobs and had our kids, that was just that was a regular part of our life, like that. So I come from beginnings that I don't want to say poor beginnings, because I felt like I was pretty rich, and the things that I've gained from it, and the things that I've learned, have taken me to spend as much time as I have with Chav and as I have with yourself. So, one thing that I was taught was respect the outdoors, honor the hunt, honor the animals, take care of your equipment, take care and respect the people around you. You do those things and things are going to be all right. So that's kind of my story. That's how it goes. Chav?
Awesome.
Well,
Chav?
I'm probably the only native New Mexican on our group. You know, I've lived here all my life. I came from a real large family also. I have 7 brothers, 3 sisters. And my parents were always working. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's something unique that I think needs to be brought up is you guys actually married sisters. So y'all are real brothers, right? So
yeah,
y'all need to, that's something I want our viewers to understand, that these guys just they're not just off the street local Joes. These guys are actually family.
Right, exactly. And Joe's our common link to our whole group. You know, he got us all,
Yes,
well, he got me into it. You know, growing up, I like to fish a lot. And I had a younger brother, 2 years younger. So we, wherever our legs could take us, we went fishing. And we've got some adventures. I'm sure Joe can remember a few. Because we were both distance runners, and Joe kept up with us. And
oh, now wait a second. I know you're going to get back to that, but I want you to imagine 2 NCAA champion cross country runners here, and you know, when these fellas decide to go up a hill, they go up a hill and they're like turning around and, you want us to carry your equipment? You know, I'm like, no. And you know, by the time I get to the vehicle, they're sitting on top of it and they're drinking Cokes. They've already been through their 3rd sandwich, and I'm just butt dragging up that hill when I get there. But you know,
right.
Yeah,
I resemble that remark.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chav.
And of course, that was many moons ago. Like I said, my father and mother worked really hard. And like Joe, I lost my father at about age 13, 14. But I always remember the work ethic that he instilled in us. And I think all of my brothers and sisters came out pretty successful. My mom passed away last year at 102.
102.
So, you know, she had a long life. And, you know, my uncle passed away and my uncle on my dad's side passed away at 101. You know, I don't know if I want to live that long.
Wow.
But
Chav, you got a lot of more elk season.
Basically just fished till I met Joe when I got married. When he got married to my sister-in-law, and he started me when I was 30 something. I don't remember. And first couple of times, I just, you know, it just clicked right away. The first hunt, we went on a deer hunt, and I got a shot at a 10-point buck. And that's, you know, a lot of people,
wow,
that's pretty hard for them during the course of their, you know, their early hunting season. And I was able to get a good shot at a deer, and it kind of hooked me up a little bit. But there's nothing like the elk hunt. And, you know, following Joe along for the last 30 years, I've learned so much. And it's, you know, watching an expert in action, you know, pretty thrilling, actually. And, you know, I learned quite a bit from him. And as I get older, I look forward to September. You know, that's like the highlight. And as you get older, if you're a hunter, you know, your days are going to be numbered somewhere down the line. So, you know, I take every day, you know, I'm blessed to get a new day every day so far. So I'm looking forward to the hunt. And just being in the outdoors, it's something different, especially in the crazy world we live in today. You know, being outdoors, you're close to God.
For sure.
And we live up here in God's country.
No doubt.
Most definitely.
Amen to that.
And I met Gilbert about 3 years ago, Gilbert. I think I first time I met you.
A little longer than that, about 4.
Yeah. I actually met him at
first time you.
Yeah, actually, the first time I met you was at a gas station. You had pulled up to fill up with gas, and I saw some antlers in the back of the truck, and I went over and that one right there.
Yeah.
And I said, "That's a nice elk. Where'd you get that?" And he said, Martinez Canyon. I go, was Joe Gilia your guide? And that's where we first met.
It's funny.
It's crazy how we met the first time.
Right.
Because what's so funny is Gilbert, and anybody that has been with me knows that one of the most important people in my life is Chav here, and he's my brother, and I don't do anything that I don't talk about him and include him and want him to be a part of that. And you had already heard so much about him, that when he pulled up there and
Yeah,
he's like, "Are you Gilbert?" You were
I
like,
could write the book.
Yeah. You were like, "Are you Chav?" Yeah, that's kind of cool.
It was really cool, and a fitting grandiose meeting, right? I mean, I had hunted with the legend Joe Gilia. Actually tagged my first elk. It was an epic event. And then I get to meet the infamous Chavez, right? And I mean, it was one of those special days. And then I didn't know after that I was going to get to spend so much time with Chav. I truly feel honored too that you allow me to hunt with Chav, and he's been my guide for the last 4 years, so 3-4 years, and it's been just a true honor. And he's such a gentleman and such a kind soul. I mean, it's been a true blessing in my life to be able to have both of you guys in my life. So
That's likewise with you too.
Yeah, and Septembers have always been an important part of my life. But when I was a kid, those Septembers were doves. They were squirrels, and let me tell you, the first time that I got in the woods and the first time I saw an elk go by me, and I saw that thing, I was like, "Buddy, I'm home."
Right. Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, at the end of the day, there's nothing like an elk hunt, right?
No, definitely not. And let the viewers learn a little bit about you, Gilbert.
Yeah, for me, elk hunting was something that I wanted for my 40th birthday. I'm an avid bow hunter and killed numerous whitetails. I would say a pretty accomplished bow hunter when it comes to hunting small game and whitetails. And I even have killed a nilgai with my bow. And so that was kind of my claim to bow hunting fame, if you would, to be able to shoot a nilgai bull with a bow. So for my 40th birthday, my wife, I asked her for an elk hunt. And look, it was really, we weren't making tons of money, but I knew if I worked hard and put my nose to the grindstone, like my grandfather taught me how to do. I was raised by my grandfather and my stepdad mostly. And they had the love for the outdoors as well, right? That's where I got my love for outdoors. So I wanted to go to the Rocky Mountains and hunt bull elk. So I have a really close friend of mine who's a taxidermist named Ronnie Barty.
Now, before you get too far, you keep saying that, I'm sorry, Gilbert, but you said that you were, for your 40th birthday? That was your 30th birthday, wasn't it?
For my 40th birthday. No, sir, 40th.
40th, okay.
40th, yes, sir.
All right.
So it was for my 40th birthday. My wife bought me an elk hunt. And I didn't know who to use, right? You read so many things and, you go through the list. So I just reached out to the guy that I knew that elk hunted a bunch, and his name was Terry Barty, Ronnie Barty's brother. He's a taxidermist in Crosby, Texas, and he's done a ton of whitetails for me. He did that elk that's behind me. So at the end of the day, I knew I could trust him with an outfitter that he'd give me. So he gave me the name of a guy, the late Carl Gamage, who sold me an elk hunt, and he was a very endearing fellow, someone who became a very, very close part of my life.
Right.
For people that don't know, my parents divorced when I was very young. My mother and father divorced when I was 7 or 8 years old. So I was raised by my grandfather. And my stepdad. My stepdad's a wonderful guy. And both of them had a love for the outdoors, and they fostered that within me. So it really helped me get past some of the hurt and the pain that I had. So when I got to this elk camp with the late Carl Gamage, he was it was amazing how God put all of us together. We all had some similar backgrounds,
Right.
some similar stories to share with one another about a little bit of heartache and how the outdoors and elk hunting put us all together. My wife jokes about it and said, well, did y'all just sit up there all the time and cry and talk about your problems and everything? But truthfully, it was a real spiritual awakening for me, because they recommended a couple of books that I read, that I've read, and those things changed my life, right?
Right.
They changed my life because, number one, I knew I needed to get myself in shape to be able to do what I love to do. And then I had to forgive some people that had really, I felt like, wronged me in my life. So I did that. And there are a whole host of guys that, not just yourself and Chav, but there's another young man up there in that country named R.C. Knox, who I spent a lot of time with in the
Right.
woods. Kent Miller, spent a lot of time with him. I can't forget those guys. Ross Miller. But Carl Gamage is the one who put all that together. And he was kind of the glue. And when I first met Joe Gillia, I was 330 pounds, right? And at the end of the day, there was no way I could hunt with Joe, but Joe challenged me. And if anybody who knows me, I'm one to rise to a challenge. That's how I've been programmed, kind of wired, is, if somebody challenges me, I'm usually up for it. I like to prove people wrong. And Joe challenged me, said, look, if you get into these things, I'll take you hunting with me and we'll be successful. Your closing abilities, my calling abilities, it's going to be epic. And every time I've been with Joe, I got my butt in halfway shape, and I want everybody out there to know round is a shape. But every time I go with Joe, it's an epic adventure, right? And it changed my life. Elk hunting changed my life. These guys that are here with us tonight, Joe Gillia, Leroy, Chad Chavez, the guys that we talked about, R.C. Knox, Carl Gamage.
All family.
This is really, for me, is a tribute. Yeah, it's really a tribute to the family that we have elk hunting together. So that's kind of what drives me. The spiritual thing for me, being up on those mountains in September and hearing the bull elk, remind me of some really close friends of mine. And it just I feel closer to God. I feel closer to everything. It helps me unwind from a serious job challenge that I have every day. We work in a pretty high pressure environment, and this is something I can really forget for 7 or 8 days who I'm with and where I'm with, and just go up there and chase elk. It's fantastic. I can't thank you guys enough for allowing me the opportunity to do that.
Well, it's kind of interesting, because one of the other questions that came in after that you have there is, what do you look for in hunting partners? And, to your credit, Gilbert, there are very few people that I choose to share my elk camp with. And, Chav and I hunted together, and we have one or two friends that have come into our elk camp with us, guys that wanted to learn how to elk hunt. And that's what's so funny is I've been guiding for a lot of years, and I've been hunting for a lot of years, but it always goes back to coaching. You've been with me enough that, I'm not just a point and shoot guide. I'm a teacher, and I like to take people, teach them about the outdoors, give them the same gift, do for somebody else what somebody did for me. And, that was a huge part of my life. And, like I said, I'm real picky always been about who I spend time in camp with. Now, when I guide people, I'm assigned somebody. I usually develop a relationship with them in one way or sort. But there's very, very few people that I choose to ride the river with. Chav and I have been doing this thing together for a long time, and we're stronger. We're stronger brothers than anybody by blood. I know that for a fact. And when most people don't, you talked about the late Carl Gamage, and a point that I wanted to make that people need to understand is it was 2000. October of 2014 when we lost Carl, and it was one of the hardest days of my life because Carl was one of those father figures, a brother figure, somebody that always had my back, I always had his back. And when we lost him, at that time, you had been a client of Carl's for a few years then. And what I want people to understand is what proved your salt to me, as well as a lot of people talk the talk. But, you know, you live all the way over in Houston, and we're here about good 11, 12 miles. You go over to Taos, where Carl was buried, is 13 hours over there. And there's people that knew Carl for years, that family members that probably didn't make that funeral. But I guarantee you that Gilbert Ornelas was there. And that's because of what that relationship with that brotherhood, what that man meant to you. And that's God's honest truth about the specialness that you share when you share an elk camp, when you go out and you do miles of woods, you know, when you push each other and when you're competing against animals, you know, the way we do, and
For sure.
compete against yourself. And I have never forgotten that. And that day that
I loved
happened.
Carl. I loved him like my dad. You know, I did. I loved him. I like my own father, right? I mean, so when I tell people that, I mean it. You know, it was one of the hardest days of my life. I've lost a few people in my life, and that was one of the hardest ones. I mean, I hit my knees when that happened. You know, it was really tough for me. He was one of my biggest supporters and one of my true friends in life. And you only get a few of those in your life, right?
So for those people that are listening, I don't want you to feel too bad about all of this, because the great and the wonderful part of that is he lives through us, just like he
Every day.
You know, and when we're out there and we're in elk camp, the stories start rolling. The Carl voices start coming out. the rude and crude jokes, you know, all of that stuff that made the man what he was.
My brother.
Yes, sir. And
right.
but I think, again, like I said, what we do is magical in a lot of different ways. And we haven't even gotten close to talking about some of the other things, but you wanted to find out about us. You wanted to find out our connection. And I mean, we got the Venezuelan mafia with us now. And those guys are two of the most special people that you'll ever come across. And they just are. What I like about everybody, you know, goes out there and, you know, we all work hard. We all care about each other. There's no selfishness. And that's one thing that
we work together,
that made our coaching successful, was we taught selflessness. And, you know, the only person that's selfish out there is Joe Gillia, by the way. I'll just tell people, because something happens to me, man, when an animal gets in the zone, man, it's just, I don't know, a glaze goes over my eyes and something's going to die. But, you know,
get in that danger zone.
Yes, sir. So I wanted to make sure that I brought that up.
Well, man, I appreciate it, Joe. Those memories flood back, and they reiterate why we do what we do, right? Another one of our listeners wrote in, and they said, Joe, I often feel uncomfortable talking to others about hunting, just not sure how they're going to take it, how they're going to think about me. What do you tell people when they ask you why you hunt?
You know, it's so funny that you're talking about this, because I just had a guy just the other day was talking to me about ElkBros. He came up and he was saying how uncomfortable he is, because he never knows with the crowd that he's in at the time if it's politically correct or whatever it is for him to talk about hunting, that there's so many people that look down on that. And, you know, I mean, I think you could take anything in the world, and there's going to be good and bad parts to a lot of it, people that represent things well and people that don't. But in the purest form of the hunt, the gift, the understanding, I'm more comfortable out in those woods with nature, becoming not tearing it up, but becoming a part of it, understanding the animals, understanding the smells, understanding the tracks. I can tell you things and that I've seen animals do and that I've experienced that people never will experience, will they?
No, actually, the thrill of the hunt itself is what I like the most about being out there in September. You know, you get to see stuff that a lot of people will never see.
Yep.
And you know, if you connect. You know, you got food for the family, but if you don't, you don't. And just the experience of being out there, you know, a crisp early morning in September, hearing the bugles out there, there's nothing like it. You know, and
well,
I think the chase for me is more important than the actual harvest.
Right.
For me, it's about being out there enjoying what God created for us. I mean, we live in a country where we're able to do this. And then when we do seal the deal, it's that sense of satisfaction that we have provided sustenance for our families. I mean, my family truly loves to eat elk meat. We eat it just about every day, if not every other day. We're eating some sort of venison. We had backstrap tonight, right? So at the end of the day, for me though, it's about the hunt, right? It's really about my brothers. I love to call in bulls. I mean, Joe's been so gracious about teaching how to call and stuff, but for me, it's about the hunt, you know, and telling people when somebody asks me about hunting and why do I do it. And I've had you know, I live down here in the liberal melting pot in Houston, Texas, and there are a lot of people down here that love their animals, right? And they don't want you harming them. And so I think educating them a little bit about disease and about something about conservation. We talk a lot about that. We don't talk about the blood and gore of the hunt, right? We talk about actual spiritualness of taking that animal and honoring that animal.
And you're exactly right, honoring the animal. And it's funny because we're all competitors.
For sure.
You know, that's one thing that is natural in all of us that go out there and do this, is that we're just really competitors. But, you know, for me, my thing as a kid was I gained respect from the quality of hunter that I was. The fact that I put food on the table was something that I took pride in. So for me, I define success. You know, I think you guys are incredibly successful men and always will be. But for me, it was a personal thing that to define success for me was to bring home and put meat in the freezer. So even though I live for the hunt and I work for that hunt and I learn about the animals that I think are so reverent, that are so majestic, that are just the most incredible animals, I do not consider my hunt successful unless I do bring something home. So yeah, the chase is incredible. I love it. I live for it, man. I live for those bugles. I live for figuring it out. I live for experiencing, getting in. Man, I've been in the middle of herds so many times and experienced so many things that people will never, ever conceptualize. But for me, and in ElkBros, and the whole design of ElkBros is I want to help people be more successful. I know a lot of people are hopefully, from what we do and what we talk about, are going to experience woods because, you know, for some people it's a fearful place. And we don't want that. We want them to go out and experience that. But my definition of success in ElkBros is to help them harvest an animal. And, you know, when that is accomplished for me, and I take great pride in that. You know, that's now when I go to tell people about, you know, I've had people ask me and they've said, well, Joe, how can you kill something that you think is such a beautiful, incredible animal? And what I explain to people is this: I am part of the natural order, and the animals that I harvest, that I kill, and people need to understand that, yes, I kill an animal, not for the sake of killing, but I do take that animal's life, and I thank that animal for the things that it's given to me, the sustenance it gives me, you know, and the honor of the hunt, you know, that takes place there. It didn't die from somebody hitting it with a vehicle. It didn't starve to death. It didn't go down to somebody just butchering and taking a head, you know. No, this animal was harvested in the honor of the hunt. And, you know, Gilbert, I when people talk about that, you know, the blood and the gore, you know what? There is blood. You know, there is things that you're going to experience that any person worth their salt, if you're going to take the life of that animal, you owe it to that animal.
For sure.
To experience that, to be with it on its last breath, you know. And I think that teaches us a lot about life, you know, and I could go into a lot of things about what's happening in today's world and with youth and all things are where people become so detached and don't understand. But to me, it is the most natural thing for me, just like somebody else that is going to go out and grow their own flowers or their own vegetables or, you know, their own spices. You know, we go out and we harvest that meat and we bring it in. So
yeah, you know, Joe, for me, growing up in Texas, hunting has been a way of life, right?
Right.
Especially in my household when I was growing up with my grandfather. I mean, we actually hunted to eat. Right. I mean, we lived on a farm, and I mean, if you didn't bring anything in, you know, that year, you just weren't going to be fed real well. I mean, we did have a few hogs and cows and I mean, a few things like that. But my grandfather sold that beef to make money. Right. I mean, we were going to eat what the land provided us. And so at the end of the day, for us, it was about that competition was an opening day ceremony every day in Texas. It's one of the biggest things that youth do with their families and their fathers. My son and my daughter, we've not missed an opening day in a very, very long time. They spend that time with me in the woods, and I cherish every moment of that. I've been able to spend 18 years with my daughter in the woods, 16 years with my son.
And you've given them a gift.
No doubt. And look, it's a way of life for us. It's a bonding that you can't separate. So when I talk to people about that, it's something that we all get together in a concerted effort to. It's a love, right? That we can only feel for people that have done it, right? That experience it. I've brought people into that fold on an opening day, and they get to experience. We go eat together. We camp together, and then the next morning we get up and go hunt, and then it's a celebration of what we harvest, right? When we bring the animal, and like you said, I only felt when I first started hunting, I only felt really vindicated when I could bring something in and have that acceptance from the group, right? Have that acceptance from my grandfather, from my uncles, my late uncle, Skeeter Lothringer. He was a huge influence in my life. This guy was an unbelievable hunter, right? An unbelievable fisherman. So to gain that respect and to gain that level of competency, to be able to be mentioned in one sentence with those guys, it was something that as young men, my cousin and myself, when we grew up, those were the things that were special to us, right?
That becomes your drug of choice.
It really was. I didn't need a needle in my arm. I didn't need to smoke it. My grandfather always had a saying that if you raise a kid up in the woods, you won't have to look for him when he's grown. And because that's where he's going to be. And I've been there my whole life. My wife will tell you it's a way of life here for us, right? She might not like it all the time, but she'd rather me do this than anything else, right? I'm not in the bars chasing women and drinking my life's fortune away. I'm not spending my kids' college on cocaine and dope, but I do elk hunt. I do take my kids hunting. We do fish, right? So we do positive things in their lives to reinforce competition and life lessons.
And
right?
That, Gilbert, is the gift and that's the whole purpose of what we're doing with this, is that there are people out there that they don't get the opportunity to learn the right way. So they pick up bad habits. We always bring out more trash than we ever take in a place like that. We take care of somebody else's property like it's our own. We share what we harvest with other people so that they can actually partake of that as well.
For sure.
I think by doing this, we can hopefully teach people to be better conservationists, to be better stewards of the woods and of the forests and of the animals and of the world as a whole. And, people view hunting as being destructive, and I beg to differ that it's very constructive, and it's something that is a part of all of us, deep-rooted. And the lessons that you learn out in those woods, out of all the hours and all the days you spent out there, the time of an actual kill is just a matter of seconds compared to all the hours and all the days and all the lessons that you learn out there. And because of those lessons, you develop life skills that you will carry the rest of your life. And there is nothing that I do not feel that I am not able to accomplish, because I truly believe if there's a will, there's a way. And that was taught to me by people that introduced me to what I'm doing.
Right. And, like I mentioned before, I've been hunting for about 35 years.
Yeah.
And we learned a lot of lessons, from year 1 to year 35. So, we're hoping that people out there will listen to the podcast and, gain some insight on how to do it right. And it's just like we're both track coaches, and we went to a lot of clinics, and somebody asked me once, why do you go to all these clinics? You guys are usually doing pretty good. You guys should put your own clinics. And I answered that, you can sit in a 30-minute to 2-hour lecture and maybe pick up one thing that'll make a big difference. So, we got a lot to offer. And if you can just pick up 1 or 2 things from us, I think it'll make your hunt a success. But going back to either connecting or not connecting, for me, it's just being out there. I really enjoy that. And I know there's no conservation wise, we're helping the environment. We're helping that elk herd by thinning the herd. And whenever we do kill something, and of course we leave the gut pile and maybe other parts out there, they only last about a day or 2.
Yeah.
Then all the other animals out there that need that food feed on it. The bears, the coyotes, the crows, the bees.
It's true. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
Right. Nothing is wasted out there. We're just part of the process.
Yeah.
And I guess Chav just said the main thing, man, is that we're part of the process.
For sure. Yeah. People have said that the number one apex predator for all time is the human race, and there's no doubt about that. But we get to do what we do because of what we've done as far as growing up, and we get to share that with all the viewers that have sent in questions, which were fantastic questions today. I guess in closing, I would just ask each one of you guys here that I guess one of the biggest things that I get asked quite a bit is when we're elk hunting, what are some of the things that would make you guys more successful if you would have known it at an earlier time?
Man, what would have made it more successful if I'd known it at an earlier time? Man, there's been so much that we put together, but I probably would just have to be the elk behavior, and I include their communication in that.
Right.
You know.
So would you say there's no substitution for time spent in the woods, huh, Joe?
Well, there's not. Well, but there is now. I mean, gosh, if I'd have had this
right
30 years ago, my learning curve, buddy, would have been way different. I mean, you can go on YouTube and you can listen to elk, you can watch elk, you can do all kinds of things there. You can listen to people that teach you how to call. You can go to a whole lot of different podcasts, learn from a lot of great people out there that are doing great things. And, you know, we're just trying to be part of that niche and hopefully offer something that, like I said, all I know, Chav and I were teachers and we were coaches for a long time. And all I know how to do is to coach and to teach. And the other thing I know,
fantastic at it. I mean,
well,
two of the best guys. I've hunted with a lot of guides, from whitetails to Neil guy. You two are two of the finest guys I've ever hunted with, not just on the technical side, but as men, right? You truly care about what you do. You have a passion for what you guys do, and it shows every time you're in the woods, right? So I know, Joe, when you're guiding where you guide and stuff like that, those guys have a true gift that they get to be around you every day, see what you do in the woods and how you have such a special connection with that animal, right? And Chav's the same way. He's been with you so long that he can almost predict exactly how a scenario is going to play out. It's a true gift you guys have, and y'all been able to bounce that off one another for the past 30 plus seasons. And to be able to give this back to our viewers is truly special.
Well, that's if people haven't seen the elk the Hunt Breakdown 2018, we've only got the first part of a 6-part series out there. But
it's fantastic.
Well, thank you, man. But the whole idea of that is you know, I could tell you about the hunt. I mean, right. I can show you my passion. I can show you everything I have in telling you the story about that. But again, the whole goal of all this is to teach people. So we are inviting people to jump on our shoulder and hear the thoughts coming out of our ears, man, because we're taking every aspect of that that's particular to that hunt and why we made decisions that we did on that hunt. And we're going to do some other hunts from other years and years back, because every hunt has different aspects, has different things that you come across, and, you know, different weather, you know, animals acting different, feed's different.
It's all a little bit different. You know, there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle.
And so we're going to help build their database that way. So that's the goal of that. And we hope everybody's enjoying it. And again, if we do for anybody out there what somebody has done for each one of us, mission accomplished.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, we want to thank you for being with us tonight, Joe. Thank our listeners for the awesome questions that they've sent in. Chav, we want to appreciate the time that you put in with us here at the Blue Collar Elk Academy and here at Elk Camp. We want to thank everybody. We look forward to questions next week, and we'll see you next week on Blue Collar Elk Academy.